Hello everyone, welcome back to Elder Drunken Highlander. I'm Kevin from the team, and I'm here to give a deck tech update video. This is about my personal favorite deck as of late, Mizzet Reborn with the Gigantha the Wellspring Companion. If you haven't seen the original video, it will be up there somewhere in the corner, so you can check that out. This will be a brief-ish update of what the deck is now up to. So, assuming that you watched that video I just referenced, the old version of the deck was using cards like Noble Hierarch, Birds of Paradise, and other one-mana dorks to really turbo out Gigantha the Wellspring, to play Mizzet, until we get the party train started. These altars, by the way, Josh made. But the deck changed slightly. The issues I ran into while piloting this deck was, with all the mana dorks, it painted a really big target on the deck's back that it wasn't really equipped to deal with. And then if dorks got killed with like incidental like shocks or lightning bolts, no one plays shock, but like lightning bolts or even like a swords, the deck really stumbled and sat there and did nothing. So the idea of the deck changed from trying to turbo out Gigantha as fast as possible to get a Niv out. It's get Gigantha kind of fast out, and then get Niv out, and then there's a lot of cards in here that I'll be going through that untap Gigantha repeatedly. So we have like Simic, Voice of Dissent, we have Teferi, who slows the sunset, we have Kiora, Master of the Depths, and other such things that tap and untap Gigantha to make oodles and oodles of mana to then pile everything onto Niv and you crash in. The other thing that changed with the deck is we upped the number of colored paired cards. Originally, the deck was on 5 of each color pair with all the mana dorks. With the change, I found a couple mana dorks that were actually on color. Got a little creative looking on Scryfall, so then now the deck has 6 of each color pair. Increases the Niv hits. It's really fun to play Niv and draw like 7 cards or something. But enough of that. Let's just quickly go into the deck and see what it is up to. So first, we'll talk about the lands, because the lands are, kind of the simple part. Well, simple kind of. We'll be getting into the little interesting tidbits. So this is a 5-color deck. So you have some of the expected pieces. We have all 10 fetch lands, and we have all 10 shock lands. They're just really good at getting the colors you need whenever you need them. Your life total, they have 40 of it, so you can just do it. But other things that are interesting to note, we have 5 Triumphs. I did look at the new Capenna ones. I did try playing 6, where I'm back on 5. I just own the Ikoria 5. I thought there might be a need to have green early on as opposed to other colors, but that doesn't really seem to be true. So I went back down to 5. I'm just playing the Ikoria 5. If you make this deck yourself and you have the 5 new Capenna ones, it's totally fine. Again, we have Command Tower. We have a singular basic forest. This used to be the other Triumph, but then got a little too greedy. Sometimes you get blown out by Path. Sometimes you just want to get your 1 basic. Sometimes you don't just want to lose to Blood Moon, even though realistically this deck does just lose to Blood Moon. We got those 2. We have a Manamo Schools at Water's Edge. This can tap for blue, and you can pay blue and tap an untap target legendary permanent. Very good with Gigantha. You can tap Gigantha for 5, use one of the blue from Gigantha to use Manamo to untap Gigantha, and you can tap it again. So it's a way to untap Gigantha on a land. And I think the most interesting part about this mana base are these 5 filter lands. These just kind of make a circle around the color pie in a circuitous way, but here are the 5 filter lands. Actually, these are in color order. How funny is that? The point of filter lands is to use Gigantha the Wellspring. So Gigantha says, add Wooburg, this mana can't be spent to pay generic costs. You can use the mana from Gigantha to pay for the filter part on each filter land. You can put a white or a blue in here to get a white, blue, or blue out. The main point of that is it frees up mana from Gigantha that you can then use to pay for colorless, or rather generic costs on cards. So when you're doing a lot of Gigantha tapping and untapping, it really helps to kind of get more cards out of your hand, let you play more stuff, and have a bigger tempo hit on the turn that Giganta is played. And that's really what the deck is going for, as opposed to trying to ramp out Giganta as fast as possible to really get a fast Niv, to really get things going quickly. The deck is now kind of hanging back, playing Giganta, and then playing Niv and having a gigantic tempo spike, where you start untapping your Giganta, you get a bunch of mana, you start shoveling things onto Niv, and then it's a Voltron deck, so you hit people really hard. So, that's the lands. And now, I'm going to just go through color by color. There's 6 of each color combination. I'll kind of point out what each of the color cards do. Generally, the broad categories are ramping, or I'll not put in my palm so you can see it. Ramping, protection of sorts, interaction, and then just hitting people. And also the untapped Giganta part. So, when we look at these Azorious cards, failure to comply and Dovin's Veto are both forms of interaction / protection. Really, all of the counter magic is really to protect Niv. You don't really aggressively play counter magic to stop other people from doing things in general. The mentality is to keep your stuff safe. Failure to comply, we'll see at the very end why we're doing it. This is part of the Sunforger package. We have Sunforger in the deck. You can get Failure to Comply with Sunforger because it is a blue-white card in your deck. Cast it with Sunforger, you cast Failure, you return something. It's totally, like, it's a little subpar, but when you have a Giganta companion clause that doesn't let you play double symbols, and something I like doing is having color bounds, so having 6 of each color pair really, at least a creative deck building. That's why I really enjoy this deck. It's very fiddly, a lot of knobs you turn, cascades throughout the rest of the deck. That's where we ended up. So, a Failure to Comply and Dovin's Veto are protection. Winvala Shield of Seagate is also protection. This is basically, it's like a Dauntless Bodyguard on a stick, if you know what that card does. Or it's like a Teferi's protection. It gives your stuff hexproof and indestructible for the turn, just really keeps Niv and the rest of the board safe. Seal of the Godhead, this is part of a cycle from Shadowmourne Eventide. There's basically 10 2-color enchantments that give a buff if it's a color and give a second buff if it's a different color. So the idea is you can just slap them on Niv, you play all 10, Niv's every color, so you get there. Another card that's really good in here, Sovereigns of Lost Alara. It has Exalted, and you can, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, search your library for an aura, put it on the attacking creature, and shuffle. With this deck, it is not hard for Niv to attack alone, especially when it has a bunch of nonsense on it. With Sovereigns in play, you grab the best aura in the deck, which is often Runes of the Dais, which we'll see in a little bit. Put it onto Niv, and someone just dies. And Teferi who slows the sunset, I was talking about him earlier. He's one of the ways we untap Giganta. The plus untaps Giganta and like a land, then an artifact, I guess. We also gain 2 life. There's a minus that kind of helps smooth out the turns when you have Niv in play. Sometimes what can happen with the deck is Niv is out, you got the things on, and you kind of don't have other draw. You kind of start petering out. You can -2 and kind of keep the cards flowing as you keep the pressure on. So, we'll move into Dimir. We got another 6 cards. We'll start with Helm of the Gas Lord. This is the enchantment in the cycle. Draws some cards, but it's a little expensive, but still gets the job done. A lot of the blue-black cards, so this deck doesn't actually have a lot of lands. It only has 34. So a lot of the cards in the deck are also focusing on keeping the lands coming, especially in the early game. Sometimes you keep hands with only 3 lands, and you need to count to 5 with Giganta, or sometimes even 2 lands. So Notion Rain and Discovery Dispersal really keep the cards flowing early game. Notion Rain, you surveil 2, draw 2, lose 2. In Discovery, like Dispersal sometimes happens, but not really. We're playing this for Discovery. You surveil 2, draw a card. These both look at a lot of cards, and if you're just looking for a land, you just bin everything else. And that's something that I have learned a long time as a Magic player. If you need something, you get the thing you need and forget everything else. Like sometimes you're looking at the top 3 and going, man, there's a Sovereigns of Lost Alara here, and like Teferi's Sunset here, it's really good. If you just need a land, look for the land. Forget everything else. You have a 100 card deck. You'll find other bombs in your deck. That's what these cards do. Dimir Charm also kind of does that. It kind of looks at the top 3 and basically puts 2 in the bin and puts the other one on top. If you need a land, you can find it. Also, it is a form of protection. Counter target sorcery spell, aka Wrath of God or equivalent. And then destroy target creature with power 2 or less. I don't think I've really done that, but there are certainly cases where it matters. Kill like an Esper Sentinel. Maybe you just gotta kill the early dork, bolt the bird. And then back into counter magic, counter swirl. This is a blue-black counter spell. Counter target non-creature spell. Again, keep our stuff safe. So that leaves us with Orzhov the Multifarious. This is, since it has Surveil 1, it's kind of doing the both of smoothing the early game. If you need a land, you just play it. Surveil 1, it's not a land, you bin it. But it has X, and you can become a copy of a creature in your graveyard. And it gains this ability, and it's still named Orzhov. Something that happens a lot with this deck is if Jegantha gets killed, the deck can stumble with all the pieces that are built around untapping Jegantha and tapping again repeatedly. So this deck has a couple of ways to actually recur creatures from the graveyard, and Orzhov is kind of doing that. If Jegantha's in your graveyard, you can pay the X, in this case 5, have it become a copy of Jegantha, and then you start tapping Orzhov to do everything else. Not to say there isn't other good creatures to copy, like you can still copy Sovereigns of the Lost Alara, and then you have enough, and then you got it back, and you can start really bringing on the beats. So, the next color pair we'll look at is Rakdos. Something I've noticed with a lot of these color pairs is some color pairs have more cards than others in terms of depth. So like, we looked at Dimir. Dimir has an okay card depth. Azorious actually has a pretty good card pool. Rakdos doesn't. There's not a lot of good cards in Rakdos, so we kind of started really grasping for straws to kind of get up to the 6. But that's the joy I find in building this deck. So, Fist of the Demigod. It's the enchantment, +2/+2, first strike Wither. A pretty good combination. It's very hard to block first strike Wither. Because if, let's say Niv Mizzet is a 10/10 with this thing on, and your opponent has like two 8/8s. Like they can't block it, because obviously one just has the first strike damage, but you can also like distribute -1/-1 counters. They're gonna get a little tricksy. So Wither is just a very hard thing to deal with, especially with first strike. Cooldown's command. Sometimes you gotta kill a thing and return a creature. Oftentimes Jegantha. The other 2 modes aren't as live. Discard a card is pretty irrelevant, especially in a multiplayer format like Commander. But 2 damage is relevant. I have killed walkers with the 2 damage. I have killed like the Esper Sentinel or other equivalent creature with it. Totally fine. So that leaves us with these. We'll look at Last One Standing. This one is a board wipe that you can play with Jegantha. That's basically it. You can get it with Jegantha, because with the Jegantha mana, or rather Jegantha's companion restriction, you can't play Wrath of God. You can't play Supreme Verdict. But boy, howdy, I wish I could play Supreme Verdict. So yeah, you're playing Last One Standing, which is totally fine. So that leaves us with these 3. Again, the deck's kind of looking to draw cards. So Prosperous is kind of a generic include. It gives us cards. It gives us treasure. Kind of does things alright. We'll talk about Formally. This is a desperation kill spell. Something I've learned that this deck can't deal with is Maze of Ith or Glacial Chasm. It's really hard to deal with those cards. This deck was on the Wasteland, and then I ended up cutting it. I believe, I don't remember what I cut it for. Something else. But we were playing Formally. This is a 5-mana kill spell that kills a creature and a land. And you lose 3 life. Who cares? It's really there for kill a land and sometimes a creature. So that leaves us with Sarkhan the Mad. There's 2 important modes in Sarkhan the Mad. There's a 0, which draws cards, and then there's a -4, which says each dragon creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. With Niv Mizzet being really big, oftentimes you can use Sarkhan the Mad's minus to punch over someone's blockers to get in a final blow, or you can use it to just kill a planeswalker. That's the way I use Sarkhan Mad as of late. Someone played an Ugin, a Spirit Dragon, and plussed it. I played Sarkhan and had Niv punch Ugin in the face, and Ugin immediately died. Speaking of Sarkhan, we're going to be looking at some red-green cards now. Most of these kind of make mana. So, Black Market Tycoon and Zotar Druid both make mana. This one can store between turns, this one can't. They both kind of do the thing. Runes of the Dais. This is the enchantment, the Voltron piece that Sovereigns of the Lost Allure really looks to get every single time. This just kills people. Simic, Voice of Descent, and Sarkhanvol both are Gigantha untappers. This one, you can pay the white to untap it, and this one, you actually -2 to active treason something. Much like Zealous Conscripts in a Kiki Cheeky combo, you can target your own stuff, so the -2 just targets Gigantha, untaps it, can make mana again. Also, both these giving Niv haste in a pinch is very useful. Renin 6 is really here because we have 10 fetch lands. There's no reason to play Renin 6 otherwise, but with Renin 6, it gives this deck a form of pseudo card draw and really helps it hit the land drops. So it's a red-green Crucible of Worlds that can get attacked, and it costs over $100 because it sees play in other formats because it's very good. So now we'll look at the Selesnya cards. The Selesnya cards have a lot more Voltron pieces because they actually have a pretty good suite of enchantments they can stick on stuff. So Shield of the Oversoul is part of the cycle. It gives +2/+2 flying indestructible. Indestructible is very good. Then we have Armadillo Cloak and Unflinching Courage, which give both Trample and Spirit Link, basically kind of like Lifelink and Lifelink. So good ways to really get the beats in, and with those cards, this deck can climb up upwards of 60 plus life with relative ease. Safe Right Quest helps hit lands. It's 1 mana, grab a land, put it in your hand. Favorable Elder is another copy of Gigantha. We also have Boom Tender, which you will see in a bit. But really, Gigantha, you have issues with untapping and retapping because the mana has the restrictions. You can't use them on generic costs, and you have to do the silly things with filter lands. Favorable Elder has none of these problems. You just untap it and tap it and just make oodles of mana and dump them into stuff. And newcomer, as of this video, is Glunch the Bestower. This is just a fun card I'm trying. I think it does anything the deck wants at any point in time. If you play early game, pre-Niv, you're probably making Treasure. In anticipation of the Niv turn, you can crack our Treasure to get more mana to make Niv even more powerful. After Niv is in play, you start putting counters onto Niv to really basically murder someone. And if things aren't going great, like you have Niv in play, but it's not very big, you can't get it to be big enough, you have a bunch of mana, you just draw a card. It's totally fine. It being a 0/5 blocker early game is very relevant. You can dish out the counter strategically so you can always have this blocking. You can also kind of pull the attention off yourself. Kind of like the standard group hug thing of, look, I'm giving you things, leave me alone. Excuse me, leave me alone. So that lets the pressure go off of you, buys you time. So, on to the Orzhov. We'll talk about the Voltron pieces first. Edge of the Divinity is 1 mana for an enchantment +3/+3. 1 mana is pretty nice. The hybrid, you can always use it with your Gigantha. You can basically always play it. Brina the Demagogue, you think is a political tool. It's not really a political tool here. What happens is, alright, I'll read this card. This card has a bunch of confusing text. By a bunch, I mean 1 paragraph. It's as flying. Whenever a player attacks one or more opponent, if that opponent has more life than another one of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card and you put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature you control. So, if you have Brina and Niv Mizzet out, you can attack the 2 people who basically have the higher life totals. I'm putting this in quotes. Literally the higher life totals. You get 2 Brina triggers, you draw 2 cards, and you put 4 counters on Niv. And then you start killing people. And you get these weird political dynamics as people start attacking each other, wanting their cards. Niv gets bigger because they draw the card, but we always get the counters. So Brina is a very deadly card, and it took me a while to learn how to play with it, but it is very good. Noteworthy though, Brina gets worse when you start killing people. So once people kind of start dropping like flies, you have to hope Niv is big enough to kind of close out the deal. We have Cauldron Haze as a protection card. Gives your things persist. Get another ETB trigger with Niv. Draw more cards. Basically keep your Giganthas and whatnot safe. 2 pieces of interaction. Vanishing Verse is actually very relevant. There's a lot of good mono-colored permanents out there that you can just kill. Vanishing Verse does it all. Instant speed. Exile is very relevant. Merciless Eviction is just a Wrath of God that I can play. That costs 6 mana, and you just yeet whatever you need. It's gone forever because it's Exile. And Priest of the Fell Rites is a way to return Gigantha. You can play it early. I like how you can play it preemptively, wait for Gigantha to get killed, and go, aha, I'll return it. And then it has Unearth, so you can actually return Gigantha twice. So, on to the Izzet cards. We'll start with Cloud the Dominus, another very relevant enchantment. +2/+2 Shroud Haste is very good. You play your other things on Niv first, and then you play Shroud Haste with the Cloud of the Dominus, and you just kill people, and they can't do anything about it with their swords or anything. So, in here we actually have another Gigantha untapper. Probably the weakest of the bunch is Ralzeric, because you tap something and untap something else. The -2 isn't very alive, but 4 mana untap Gigantha, sometimes that's all you need. In here we have a lot of card smoothing mechanics, or not mechanics, cards, to help really facilitate the land drops throughout the entire game. Izzet Charm, loots, it also protects your stuff with the counter mode. The 2 damage, you can also just pick off small things. Could be nice. I actually used this in a game recently to deal 2 damage to a blocker so Niv could trample over and kill someone, and that felt really awesome to do, and I don't think I'll ever do that again. Expressive Iteration is very good when you're looking for a land, or any sort of thing. It's 2 mana, look at 3, you keep 2. In some capacity, 1 gets exiled, 1 goes to your hand, the other goes on the bottom. This card, it got banned in Pioneer for a reason. The card is fantastic. And Prismari Command often says, draw 2, discard 2, make a treasure. Sometimes you kill something, sometimes you destroy an artifact, but again, it's just a way to kind of churn through the deck and basically get what you need. Magma Opus, it says 8 mana, but we're going to cover everything that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is this little bit here, which is paid 2, discard Magma Opus, create a treasure, which helps facilitate a earlier Gigantha. You don't sometimes need to really have consistent mana early game, you just need to get Gigantha faster, so having this as a ritual is totally fine. In late game, sometimes you just gotta pay some mana, kill some things, draw a card, make a 4/4, or actually draw 2 cards. It kind of does everything. It is both functional early game and late game. So, onto the Golgari cards. We'll start with the enchantment. This is definitely the weakest out of the 10 enchantments we're playing. This is 5 mana, the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 death touch and must be blocked. It's a little on the questionable side, but I'm committed to playing all 10 in the cycle, because it's fun. And, you know, sometimes having a death touching, first striking, or you'll get first strike from something else, like first strike, death touch, must be blocked, you can just kill entire people's board. So, I say questionable, but it's not bad by any means. We got 2 forms of acceleration, Skull of Prophet and Deathward Shaman. Deathward Shaman is fantastic, banned in Legacy, I believe, for a reason. Skull Prophet is a 2 mana dork, does things, makes mana. The end. We have 2 ways to kind of return Gigantha. We have Journey to Eternity, which you often stick on Gigantha, so when Gigantha dies it comes back, and you can activate the activated ability on Atzel, the Cave of Eternity, to return Gigantha, or even Niv. When it comes to late game, you let Niv hit the bin, pay 5, return Niv, get an ETB trigger. Revival Experiment is something this deck can actually play oftentimes before Gigantha dies. With all the looting effects, you can kind of set up your graveyard to have 1 of each type, and then you return like 3 or 4 things, and get like 8 mana plus worth of stuff. And that's a really big tempo swing. You take 12 life, who cares? You have this gigantic thing, you're murdering people. An Assassin's Trophy just kills anything you need. Another way to kill Mizzet, or Glacial Chasm, or whatever else is a problem. So, Boros cards. Here we actually have a backup win condition that this deck has. General Ferris Rogrick. It is a 3/1 hexproof from monocolored, hexproof from monocolored. And whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you make a 4/4 golem. There are only I think there's only 3 cards aside from ones in this deck that aren't multicolored. So it turns into cast a spell, make a 4/4. It's sometimes when you can't crash in with Niv, you can make 8 4/4s instead and kill people. Also, this really hedges against edict effects. If everyone's like sack a creature, playing Voltron can be tricky to have a bunch of 4/4s. Way easier. So you have 2 ways to make Nif bigger. Scourge of the Nebulous, +2/+2 lifelink, and as I dub, Boros Fire Breathing. Does its job. Leech's Initiative also gives Niv Visit +1/+1, and Giganta +1/+0, I guess. But really, it's also a form of protection, because you can pay 2 mana in exile and blink your board until next combat. You get another ETB trigger, so when Niv has like 3 or 4 or 5 auras on it and they all fall off, they come back, Niv comes back, you can draw another fistful of cards, save your Giganta, save your Niv. Does it all. Forging the Tyrite Sword was a card that's kind of been in and out of the deck. It's now in because I have Sunforger and another equipment that we'll see. Also, early game, makes treasure, kind of helps Giganta come into play. It costing 3 mana means it's not the best at getting Giganta out because it doesn't quite curve as well. But getting an equipment, and tell me it's not Halvar God of Battle because we can't play it. We're getting one of the 2 most, like, there's only 2 equipment in this deck, but they're both incredibly powerful. Boros Charm saves our board. Maybe you'll double strike Niv and kill someone. Maybe you'll dome someone for 4 and make a meme. And then Wear Tear, the classic, just kill the 2 things. The end. You confuse it. So onto the Simic. We have 1 way to make Nif bigger. +2/+2 Flying Vigilance for 2 mana is totally fine. Vigilance is actually quite important. Lets the deck be aggressive while not worrying about crackbacks. Especially when you have like a 16/16 Niv with lifelink. You can often end combats with more life than you can end combats with more life than you should. And it's fun. We have 2 untappers here. Curious Follower and Cure Master of the Depths. Both great ways to untap Giganta to make a bunch of mana. Curious Follower also functions as a 2 mana mana door because you can untap a land. This can also help you find lands if you need to, but really you're just blessing it. Speaking of mana dork, Recoil Creeper is... So let's talk about Recoil Creeper. This deck was on Growth Spiral and Earl for a while, but with such a low land count, you can't really rely on those to hit your lands every time when you need them. So just, here's a 2 mana dork. You can just make 1 mana. I don't think this deck has any flashback cards. It used to have Faithful Mending. It's kind of been in and out. I didn't even realize the bottom line of text was there. You can just like return a card with flashback to your hand. But it just taps and makes 1 mana of any color. The end. Oko is Oko. It's banned in like every format because you can turn things into Elks, and here that is just as relevant. And Tamiyo Completed Sage is another way to return Giganta. We don't often complete Tamiyo. We're paying all 5 mana because it comes in with 5 counters, so then we can return Giganta. You can also return other strong things. You can turn like your Okos, or even an aura that's really important, like an Armadillo Cloak. Tamiyo is just a really flexible card. I was kind of iffy on it for a while. I had it, but it felt like it's underperforming, but it has really been pulling its weight recently. So, we have the last couple of cards that are not multicolored, as I dub Gateless. And these kind of all do sorts of things. So we'll start with these equipment. These are equipment I've been talking about earlier. Sunforger, we have an interesting Sunforger package, mostly a weird balance of removal and some counter magic. We did take a little bend thinking about Sunforger with the failure to comply. But again, makes Nif big, can keep our board safe. We even have the Orzhov card. I will bring it up because I have the cards right here in front of me. Cauldron Haze is a tutorable card with Sunforger to keep our board safe. There's also Boros Charm, so Sunforger can really be anything we want. Conqueror's Flail is the reason why we actually added Sunforger to get 2 equipment, and we also got the Forge of the Tyrant Sword. This card is incredible. It's in this deck. It says 2 mana equip. The equipped creature gets +5/+5, and while it's equipped, our opponents can't cast spells. So you basically get to attack every turn with 0 problem. Soul Ring is Soul Ring. So actually, I'll dwell on Soul Ring a little bit. If this deck didn't have a Giganta Companion, I probably wouldn't play Soul Ring, because this can't help cast Niv Mizzet, but with Giganta it actually does. You can help pay the Companion clause to get into your hand, and you can help cast it. So Soul Ring is totally fine. Speaking of Giganta-like cards, Bloom Tender is like Faber Elder. It's basically Giganta but better. It's more fragile, I guess, but you get to untap it and tap it and spend the mana wherever you need it. Widespread Thieving is another one of these multi-card payoffs that came off recently in New Capenna. It's Hideaway 5, I guess. But whenever you cast a multi-card spell, create a treasure. If you have a really full hand, you can just dump card after card after card, and you can actually weave your treasures up for counterspell mana on your opponent's turns. So you can just kind of tap out with no issues at all. And sometimes you just need the hit it away card, so you can get it. And perhaps my favorite card in this whole entire deck is Chromanticore. Not only is it just funny to play Chromanticore, it's actually a very important purpose. So obviously, the main idea is you bestow it onto something. By something, I mean Niv Mizzet. Give a bunch of keywords, and you get there. But all of these enchantments from Shadowmoor Eventide, they all say, as long as the enchanted creature is a color, do so, or get something, and if it's the other color, get something. So if Niv, the problem that could happen with Niv is it could turn into a tree with the Song of the Dryads, or it can get oublieted and phase out forever. There's a couple ways that you can deal with Niv that this deck really struggles, so it needs a backup target. And the backup target needs to have all 5 colors, so these enchantments work. So that kind of took us to Chromanticore. And the fact that Chromanticore can kind of serve a dual purpose of being a Voltron target and a Voltron thing you put onto Niv, it's perfect. Also, you get to play Chromanticore. That is just awesome. But that is the entire Niv Mizzet deck. So, quickly summarizing, the deck is not using dorks to play Gigantha quickly to play Niv Mizzet quickly. It is now kind of getting Gigantha out, like, hopefully a turn sooner with a 2-mana mana dork. But you're really leveraging the turn you tap Gigantha to play Niv to get the untappers and having a gigantic tempo spike to get a bunch of mana, play a bunch of stuff, make Niv really big, and then you start crashing in. And then people oftentimes can't take 3 swings from Niv at this point, or sometimes even 2. So they have to remove Niv, even if they sometimes don't want to. Remove Niv, it comes back, draw a couple more cards, by a couple I mean like another 6, pile it back onto Niv, and the train keeps on going. So, I really enjoy this deck. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are there any other changes that you would want to see? Do you think some of my weirder includes like Sarkhan the Mad or Madness perhaps? Let me know if you have any other ideas for the deck and what your thoughts are in general, but this has been a passion project of mine probably for the better part of 10 months, ever since the first video came out and even before then. So, if you join our Discord, you get to play against this deck on our spell table and get to hang out with the rest of the crew. I'm always there just lurking, hanging out, we're vibing, having a good time. I help people with other decks, people help me with my deck, certainly. And it's just a good place to hang out, and don't forget to check us on Twitter, Instagram. I think that's all where we are. The thing will be somewhere in the description. I'll edit it in because I don't remember right now. But with that, stay janky, my friends, and I'll see you guys next time.